It's finally here. Welcome to the Miracle Zone. More than a podcast, this is a sacred space for visionary leaders and heart-centered entrepreneurs who are ready to take off the masks, set aside the roles, and step into the raw, magical truth of what it actually means to lead in these transformational times. More than just building a business and a brand, you know that you're also here to share your medicine, lead a movement, and leave a legacy. If you've been craving next level conversations to get you to your next level, conversations that blend bold leadership, intuitive wisdom, and a touch of the miraculous, then you're in the right place. Because around here, we don't do things in a linear way. Whether you're already running a thriving business, leading a dream team, and impacting millions, or you're still on your way there, here we'll break free from the old ways of doing things and step into a multidimensional way of creating and leadership. Because in the Miracle Zone, we explore the intersection of business, leadership, and frequency. It's where strategy meets soul, and where visionary ideas become reality. And they happen in a snap. I'm Katarina, your host, guide, and bridge between the practical and the mystical in life and business. I'll share insights, channeled guidance, and heart-opening stories from pioneering leaders like you who are living at the edge and reshaping the way that we lead in this new world. So if you're ready to tap into your miracle frequency, to embrace the heart-led leadership that changes everything, then join me. Because this, my love, this is the Miracle Zone. I ask, I see, I know, I trust, I be. Hello and welcome to the Miracle Zone podcast. And this week we're going to talk about how to work with the Lionsgate portal or any power portal, in case you're listening to this after the Lionsgate portal, to multiply miracles and to double your business. Before I go into that, I want to share that I'm going to talk about doubling your business because that's what a lot of my clients were talking about, not specifically doubling their business, but we're working on business specifically and leadership in the context of business. But I've also had clients in the past who worked with power portals to manifest amazing things in other areas of their lives and also to advance their mission. And so for you, it might look like business building, or for somebody else, it might look like movement building. And so this is something that we can work with very practically to amplify us stepping into our potential and into our highest light. So whatever that looks like for you. So what I'm going to share today, actually, you can apply regardless of which of these applies to you, but I'm going to talk specifically about the business building piece. But I just want to emphasize that because of the times that we're in, this is something that you can do to also support other things that you are wanting to manifest in the context of the world, right? So for example, peace in these times is something that would be amazing if many of us use this power portal to be a stand for peace, for example, right? So I'm going to use the business example specifically, but I just want you to keep your mind open as you're listening, because in this particular moment in time for you, there might be something else that you're wanting to multiply and amplify in your life or in the collective. Okay. The other thing too is this, again, is something that can be used to work with portals in general, power portals in general, whether it's the Lionsgate or it could be the solstice or another power portal throughout the year. So whenever you're listening to this, you're going to get something out of this. So right now, specifically, the one that we are working with is the Lionsgate portal. I'm not going to go too in depth into what the Lionsgate portal is because either you already know, or if you don't and you want to learn more about it, I really recommend finding an astrologer that you trust, or also looking into the Egyptian mysteries because they also worked very much with the Lionsgate to learn more about it. But just to give a framework or a frame of reference, The Lionsgate portal is around this time of year. It's not just on 8/8, which is the 8th of August. It's actually open for a couple of weeks, but it's said to peak around this time. And so if you're very attuned to energies, you're already feeling it. You've already been feeling it for the last couple of weeks. And even after 8/8, you'll still be feeling it afterwards. And it's one of the things that I'm going to talk about in this 3-part process that I'm going to share with you about how to work with the Lionsgate portal or just any power portal in general to amplify and multiply miracles in whatever area of your life you want to work with. But specifically, the Lionsgate has to do with this beautiful alignment with the sun and with Orion's bells and with the star Sirius. And the star Sirius is this brightest star in the sky. And so in this particular portal, it is blessing us with extra light. We are perceiving and receiving this extra light. So there are extra light codes and activations available to us. In other power portals throughout the year, something else specifically is happening. But in many of these instances, it has to do with light bombarding us and us being able to work with that in our bodies, in our energy bodies, and to fuel us into our highest potentials. Let's just be honest here. So if you're hanging out in my space, you are very likely very attuned energetically, and it's very likely not the first lifetime that you've done this, right? So I picture us, maybe we are in a temple space, maybe we are in working with the Isis lineages. We are having this conversation in a different context, in a different time. In this particular time, we are doing what I like to call, you know, business building. And if you're watching, I'm holding up the quotes, business building, because that is the front for what we are doing here in the 3D world. We are building businesses or building movements, or you might be working in the nonprofit space, but still there's a building of a business component if you're here and in my space. But again, we could be having this conversation in many different eras, in many different contexts, not necessarily around business building per se, but all of them have to do with us stepping into our highest potentials and how to work with these energies to also uplift and elevate the collective in terms of the potentials and what is available for us in this planet, in this particular dimension, and across other dimensions, right? And so here we're talking about business building in quotes, but we know when we're talking about expanding our business, we're talking about expanding our potency. We're talking about expanding our impact that we're having, right? Talking about expanding our influence that we are wielding and holding, expanding our power in service to the highest good of all. So putting on our muggle hats, let's talk about business building and how to work with these power portals in this particular age. So the first thing that I want to talk about, the first part of working with these power portals, is it's really important to create space to listen, right? Because first of all, we're being bombarded with a lot more energy and light than average. And so we can feel really accelerated, right? There's a lot going on. There's like buzzing. We can feel really activated, right? And so we can quickly fall into, gotta do this, gotta do that. This download is coming. That download is coming. Gotta do this, gotta do that. I want to make the most of this portal. Get really excited. And I see this in myself and I see this in my clients. It's like things start picking up, but and it's easy to get caught up in the buzz of it and miss the magic, which is the downloads that are coming, and to have discernment to listen and hear for the one or the two that are the big insights. Because what's happening in these power portals is we are riding this energetic wave, but we have to catch the wave, right? We got to be out there in the ocean, paying attention. Oh, the waves are coming. The waves are coming. Okay.
this is the wave, right? Not just catch the very first wave and then we're gone. Now we have to swim back out to go for the next one. And so to trust and give ourselves the time and the space to ride these energetic waves and to listen and to feel what's happening, notice what's happening in our world, what is happening in our space. One of the things that a lot of my clients right now are messaging me about is working with the nature and specifically animals coming into their spaces. One of my clients had this wild encounter with a rat, which was crazy, but super meaningful. For me, I've had with geckos and moths as well, just like a moth sitting on my hand. I was just sitting with the concept of transformation. The moth flew in through my window and just sat on my hand and on my arm and refused to go. And I tried to take it outside. It just kept hanging out of my hand. And I finally got released that moth out. And then another one came in through another window and came to find me. And so again, we have to pay attention and listen and see what the invitations are. I've also had one year where it was a scorpion that came, right? Again, it's different for each of us and how we receive signs, right? Some of us, it might be more visions, we might hear. Some of us, the animals will come and speak to us. I've shared in the past also other experiences I've had in terms of scarabs. When I was getting ready for my trip to Egypt, the scarabs were visiting me. There were just scarabs all over the place. Okay. So that's just one example. But again, it's something that's so easy to miss, especially if it's something tiny. There's all sorts of things flying through the air. Why am I noticing the moths, right? But it was a very specific encounter that I had, and I could feel there was a message there for me. And I knew it because I didn't listen the first time. And then the second moth came in, and then I sat with the moth, and I was like, okay, let me tune in and let me listen for what is here for me. And so we have to create those spaces because when we are manifesting in the space of these power portals, it's not a logic thing. So, for example, if we're talking about doubling our business, it's not that we've built out a whole strategy step by step for the whole year leading up to the Lionsgate portal, and then we're going to activate the resistance on top of everything we've done leading up to the Lionsgate portal to make the most of the portal. No, usually it's something that isn't anticipated, somehow comes out of left field, or is an insight that we have that we didn't have before, that all of a sudden clicks into place around this time in this energetic climate. And then we can ride that wave in our business or whichever area of our life we are working to bring about this manifestation. And that's why in many instances, and I talk about this a lot, it's less so a manifestation, but it's creating a space for miracles because we are not necessarily sitting there saying, I want to double my business. I'm using that as an example because that's something that I did with one of my Lionsgate portal experiences, but I didn't go into that particular Lionsgate portal thinking I'm going to double my business. And so it's just creating a space of deep listening, knowing that there is so much beautiful medicine and so much available to us when we're riding these energetic waves. And it's easy for us to get swept up and caught up in the current. And so we need to intentionally create space to slow down. And so I'm sharing that because it's something today that I really needed to cultivate myself. I could feel it picking up and I was like, okay, I need to slow down and listen what is actually here for me. So that's the first part that I want to mention. And so the second part that I want to mention is, okay, what's step two? Step two, the first step is we hear the insight or we get the aha. It clicks. We're like, oh yeah, this is the wave. Oh, it's a big wave. I don't know if I'm comfortable with it, but this is the wave. So the second step is choosing to catch the wave, choosing to take the action or do the thing. If our inspiration that's dropped in is to do something, even if it's left field, even if it seems crazy, to do that. And that's why the Lionsgate portal, any portal, but specifically the Lionsgate portal, is very connected to courage. and working with the heart in terms of courage, because this is also a quality of the heart. And so it's not a kind of, I hear the inspiration, I surrender, and I just let it happen all on its own. It's no, we hear it, we receive it. And when we are invited to move, we make the move, right? Even if it makes no sense. And usually during these portals, it will make no sense. So I'm going to give you an example for me. So in terms of the first part, so I mentioned 1 year during the Lionsgate portal, I doubled my business, even though I wasn't necessarily, it wasn't on my agenda. It wasn't like a whole strategy. Obviously, it's wonderful. We all want to double, and it was doubling my revenue. We all want to double, right? But there wasn't like a strategy there. What happened to me first is I got silent. I happened to have a particularly silent week, which was really a blessing because I'm a full-time parent and I don't usually get any time off. And that particular year, I was having a whole week to myself because my son was with his father who lives in a different country. So that does not happen very often that I had the week off, but I had extra spaciousness. And so I could have filled it with so many things. I had so much energy and so much inspiration, so much was coming through. And I remember being like, no, I'm going to slow down. And I remember I was in South Africa, and so it was quite cold. And so I remember lighting the fireplace, and I remember I brought out my harmonium, and I was just with the sounds and music and the fire and just being in that energy, not intentionally trying to do anything, not for my business or for anything else. Just, wow, I had this space all to myself. Amazing. Okay. So in that space, I got this intuition, this insight to create a different offer, not necessarily a brand new offer, but to somewhat pivot one of the offers that I already had and to increase the price point and to really bring together the work that I was offering in a different way, because it had been somewhat fragmented. And I was like, oh, I can offer this all in one. I can offer the business support and the leadership support. I can also bring in the healing. I can bring in the activations that I do all in one package in a more integrated way and really bring all of me to this particular offer. And so I shifted a little bit something I had. I increased the price point. It ended up being an offer that was over 100K. And normally I would have been like, okay, I got to work my way up to this and all the things. But it was like very clear to me, this is the time, this is the offer, this is the price point. And I didn't think twice about it. And it didn't make any sense. And also, it was quite risky because I risked losing my current clients because I was discontinuing the previous offer that I was doing. It wasn't just, oh, some people I'll keep doing this, and with others, I'm doing that. It was like, no, I got a really clear guidance that this is the next level of this offering. And this is what I want to invite people to. And this is the level at which I want to work with people at. And if they're in, amazing, let's go. And if they're not, then it's okay. We're complete. And I'm creating space for people who are. And so it was hugely risky. And it took so much courage to really own the value of this new offer and to implement it really quickly. And so that was the second step. So I received it. And then it was, okay, taking the action to do it, not getting lost in it making sense, not getting lost in all of the things, not getting lost in the mind, but trusting the heart and doing the hard work to have the courage to put that out pretty quickly into the world. In this case, in speaking with my existing clients and then with my community at the time. Risky and scary. And usually these things are, especially with Lionsgate, I feel like a lot of the activations are heart activations. And so they do invite us into the next thing. Again, it's not just about growing our business or whatever goal or thing that is that we're working on. It's about inviting us into our highest potential and our highest potency in what we're here to do and how we're here to serve in the world. and the impact that we're here to make. Okay. So the third part, so the first part, we need to create space to listen and receive so that we hear the wave and we catch the right wave. Secondly, we have to catch the wave, even if it's huge and scary and really risky, and we might get lost in it. Okay. The third part is what I call the whiplash part. And so I talk about Lionsgate whiplash, but again, this applies to power portals in general. The whiplash part is when it works, So my clients were excited and they were yes to it. And I was like, oh yeah, I need to actually do this. Right. And this can look different in many different ways. I've had this also in the past look like, okay, we say yes to this next level of service that we're here to do in the world with our clients, this next level of impact. It could be opening up your second business. It could be a speaking opportunity. I've had clients do big talks or TED Talks that coincide with this time, and it catapults their career. And they also came out somewhat unplanned and out of the blue and last minute, surprisingly, even though that doesn't typically happen for something like a TED Talk, right? Okay, so we hear the thing, we do the thing, we ride the wave, and then we are fully seen, and then we are fully heard, and then we are fully radiant, and we're shining, and we're glowing, and all the eyeballs come, and then that's where the whiplash starts to happen. It's, oh, I need to do this, right? I need to deliver this new offer, or I need to actually go on stage and do this, or I need to actually deal with the after effects of what happened when I did the talk, or I released the book, or I opened that second business. Then there's the after effect of that. And typically, what I see happen often is a falling away of what no longer is in alignment. So for me, to give an example, and this has happened to me twice related to Lionsgate, is I noticed it a lot in the relationship realms. Is around this time, there's like a big upgrade in terms of frequency and potency and the work that I'm doing. And all of a sudden, something in the relationship that I'm in is no longer a match. And so maybe it's my partner getting really uncomfortable all of a sudden with how much I'm earning because everything has doubled. And so it's, oh, that triggers insecurities in others or something in the power dynamic. And it's something that I'm not saying that the relationships always need to necessarily end, but there's friction or becomes janky, and it's something that you need to navigate then together. And sometimes it's an opportunity for deepening and expansion in a relationship. And sometimes it's just a natural completion. It's, oh, this is no longer a fit because I feel like in my highest emanation that is not being supported. And so that's just one example, but I've experienced that for two Lionsgates in different contexts. Is okay when all of a sudden it's like, expansion, highest emanation, highest potency, saying yes to more, saying yes, different relationships are falling away and they no longer feel resonant. And that can be really difficult. And I think that's why I like to talk about the whiplash part is when we are making these big quantum leaps or these big jumps or these big shifts and these big reconfigurations of who we are energetically in our identity, in our business. This could also be where you might do a big change related to your brand or a big pivot in your business, and you just show up differently. And then people are used to one thing, all of a sudden they're seeing something else and they're like, who is that? Like I've had partners being like, I don't feel like you're being authentic. And it's wait, but it's just because I grew and this is the new authentic expression. It would be inauthentic for me to keep showing up in that way that I was showing up before. We have to be prepared for the after effects of the whiplash of these big changes that we make, because it's really easy if we're not prepared for that. And that's why I love talking about this. Even though these 3 steps are obvious, in the way they play out in life and in business and in your leadership, they are not necessarily easy, right? Portals are initiations. And we have to be prepared for them, because otherwise, if we're not, then we think something is going wrong, or we messed up, or we made the wrong decision, or why is this not being supported? Why am I feeling so much friction around this when it felt like the right thing to do? Why all of a sudden are these issues coming up in areas of my life that were perfectly all right before I stepped into whichever portal I stepped into and made those bold, courageous moves? And it's no, when those happen, it's actually a positive thing. It's a sign that there was a shift and something changed within us. And also it's being reflected externally around us. And it can feel challenging, and it can feel painful, and it can feel like, well, I wish I could go back. I wish I could go back to the former me, because things are working pretty well there. And I really like that relationship, or I really liked where I live, but now I've been called to move to a new place to do a new thing. And I didn't really want to move and leave everything that I leave behind. Or sometimes the call is to completely pack up our business and shift into something different, or to open a new business and do a huge pivot, right? We don't really know necessarily what's going to come knocking when we create the space to listen. We don't know what the wave is going to be like, but the wave, we're going to ride it. And it's going to be amazing. Woo! Eventually it's going to crash. And we got to be able to be with that as it builds up again and again. And so this is just something to be aware of, so that we're not seeing it as something wrong, but actually a sign of, oh, okay, I'm doing the thing. And I think as we work with these power portals year upon year and at multiple points throughout the year, then we get to know the flavor of them. And so it stops surprising us, and it becomes a bit of a joke. And it's also something that we can already have conversations in advance, right? It's, hey, for new relationships that are here to say, hey, just so you know, around this time, this is a pattern that I've experienced. And let's talk about it in advance. How would it feel for you if all of a sudden this happened, or if all of a sudden I was on this huge stage? And actually proactively address those, so that it's not a shock or surprise to anybody when it actually happens. So I want to pause there and just share, this is connected really to, because we're talking about the Lionsgate portal, very connected to power and stepping into your next level of power in your leadership and in your business, and your capacity to be with that power, which also is your capacity to be with more light pulsing through your system. How much more light can you let in? If we're sitting there really receiving these blessings from this cosmic gateway, can we let more and more light in? And then also, when we're catching the wave, can we catch the bigger wave and allow us to emanate more and more light out? And so I'm going to invite you, if this initiation related to power and being more in your expression, more in being visible, more in your power and potency in this way, is something that you're excited to explore in the aftermath of the portal. So post portal, when we are having this whiplash and readjustment and recalibration, it's really important to practice holding this higher octave of light, so that we don't shrink as these things start happening. This is something that we're doing together in my Pillar of Light Miracle Mind. We're working specifically on these things. I invite you to check that out. That's in the links. And I invite you to just take a breath during this portal. Remember that it's not just a one-day thing. I think there's so much around 8/8, and it's just easier from like a marketing land perspective to bring all this attention to this particular date. It's not just about this date. Again, it's something that's building up and then fades out. And then we also have the whiplash effect. Then we also have eclipse season coming. And so that's where a lot of things will start pivoting, and a lot of this reconstruction will start happening, right? And that's why we'll gather together in Pillar of Light, in the Miracle Line, to kind of take stock of where we are in the aftermath of writing this portal, in the aftermath of working with eclipse season, which is just around the corner, and to just reground and be like, okay, how have we integrated this surge of light and this surge of upgrades into our business and into how we lead? And how will we then take this forward into the remainder of the year to really amplify the impact, whether your goal is to double your business or to start your second business or to launch your second book or to speak on that bigger stage, or whatever that opportunity is that you're calling in, or that you even don't know you're calling in, but very soon you will be seeing that you're calling in. How do we then make that our baseline, make that our new normal from an energetic standpoint, so that we can be stabilized at this new frequency that we have just so beautifully called in, and so that we can function at that frequency without all of our short circuiting or going into that dimming. Thanks for joining me today. I wish you all the beautiful blessings and light during this particular portal. And if you're listening to this in the future, whichever portal that you are listening to, and I will see you next week. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Miracle Zone. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a transmission. And if today's episode and conversation resonated, leave a review and share it with a fellow visionary leader. In the links, you can access my free Miracle Business Blueprint, the 7-part framework I use with my clients to create a thriving, scalable, and self-sustaining business that gives you more freedom, not less. Plus, you'll receive a guided process to identify where to focus first, so you can spend more time leading in your miracle zone right away. Let's build the new as a collective for the collective. Together, we're not just creating miracles, we're living them. Until next time, stay in the miracle zone.